All right, here we go. Week 32 recap from the Comedy Accelerator workshop here in Austin, Texas, taught at the Creek and Cave every Sunday from 3 to 5, or whenever we end up getting scheduled, but usually Sundays 3 to 5. So we had 35 people at the workshop this week. So we are bulging at the seams. We're getting bigger and bigger, which has challenges. Like, it's going to be interesting to see how we can do this to make sure everybody still feels involved. And we still have done, I think, a good job of it because we're doing a lot of, there's like 20 minutes of me lecturing, and then 20 minutes of an active exercise of people writing or working on something, and then an hour of some kind of stage performance and feedback. So it works. It's a lot of effort. It's fast, but we'll see as it gets bigger and bigger what we need to do to adjust to that. So in the career segment at the beginning, the first 20 or 30 minutes, I talked first of all about having producer vision. That one of the things you find once you move out of straight stand-up, just being a comic, being the act, is that you start producing your own shows, or if you move to Hollywood or New York or something, and you start working in TV or film, especially TV, you might be a producer, which means basically you're the person putting everything together, making sure it doesn't fall apart, taking care of all the problems as they come up, making sure everybody's in the right place. You basically have producer vision over the entire project to make sure it stays on track and is going to be good. And that is a incredibly valuable type of vision. So for me, I explained, like here in Austin, and this has always been my thing in stand-up, is that my producer vision kicks on in stand-up comedy when I see somebody, either see their act or meet them in person. I look at them as assets. Like, what are their assets? There's a lot of different things you can do well or not do well in stand-up that make you valuable to a producer. And it's not to just make money off of you, it's to make money with you. So if I see somebody that I think, oh, this person, if they continue to amplify, continue to accelerate in their material and their character and the things that make them really good live acts, could be a real draw. They may have a good matchup to a market. And when I see that, my producer vision kicks on. I was like, oh, okay, if you develop this person and they're work withable, which is one of my favorite words that I made up, that you can make money with them and they can make money too. So you have to have producer vision, and you have to also be able to turn it on yourself, which is even harder. What are your weaknesses? Are there weaknesses that you're just going to have and never really fix? And that's very possible. In fact, everybody's got weaknesses they'll never fix. I'm a terrible actor. I could probably get to be a better actor, but I don't want to act. The most I like to do is get up and talk to people, direct public address. And even in stand-up, I'm a better educator, better lecturer, really funny lecturer than I am a stand-up. So I know these things about myself, and I work within those boundaries to push what I'm really good at and not try to make a living with where my weaknesses are. Next, we switched and talked about how comedy is always changing. Like everybody knows, it's changed recently in the last, half a decade with the rise of podcasts and social media. Now, a lot of people are just living on clips. It becomes a clip industry. And I've started to see a lot of funny memes and posts about people like, oh, I saw your clips. Your clips are great. And then they're like, well, have you ever been to my live show? And they're like, you do a live show too? I thought you were just a clip. And so you have to also be able to do live shows well if you're going to make your money off live shows. If you just want to live in the media and work in podcasts and social media, that's great. But most people, especially in stand-up, blend those things, which means when people see you in the social media, they come to see you, both have to be great, which again is a high demand on a single performer. And a lot of people fail at it. A lot of people will drive people to their shows and then don't deliver that sort of high octane, super dense live comedy club experience that has driven comedy for so long, that people know when they go to a really great comedy show, it's a special experience. And so in some ways that's kind of dwindled. I think people are not pushing as hard, and there aren't as many clubs that can create that experience. So I don't know if it's going to be where the demands on live shows dwindle and people aren't same expectations, as long as they get something close to what they've seen in the social media. But it's something to think about. The best solution clearly is to be able to do both really well, but again, not easy. Finally, I talked about work ethic and obsessiveness, how the difference when I've bounced back and forth from Los Angeles to Austin literally for the last 30 years. And the difference in the two cities is often work ethic and obsessiveness. It's easier in LA because there's an industry around you all the time. You're driving, you see Paramount, you see production companies, you see clubs, that you've heard about your whole life. You see famous comics, famous actors. So you're like, oh, I've got to up my game here. And you've got to compete against a lot of really good people. There are also people in LA working that aren't all that impressive once you get inside, but you still realize they've gotten those jobs. There's something that they've done, some advantage that they've got that you've got to be able to compete against. No matter what, whether it's fair or nepotism or whatever it is, quality is not always the determining factor, and you still have to compete. So in Austin, it's not, there's people see these shortcuts, like going through Kill Tony and the Mothership. Like they can pluck you out like a carnival crane and drop you into a career. And maybe, I don't know, it's a pretty tenuous path. To me, like learning the foundations for stand-up of networking, making your script all A or A plus or marquee level comedy script. If you can do these things, like getting really powerful on stage, having a really powerful defined, animated character, all these things that people will recognize and go, oh, that's worthy. But you have to be obsessive about it. You can't be thinking I'm competing against the Austin ecosystem. You're competing against the worldwide ecosystem now, but especially the LA and New York ecosystem. Can you be better than those guys? Can you be better than those comics? More intense, more interesting, funnier. And if you can, then you can go out there and compete. If you can't, it's just a very crowded market. It's a very crowded occupation. So you got to do something special to stand out. Then we switched over to the 20-minute assignment where we pick what we've been doing is pick a autobiographical topic. Everybody writes out a quick list of ideas that they've had from their life, and then get in a group of 4. Everybody gets 5 minutes each to pitch their story, give out information. Everybody else is supposed to turn it into stand-up script as quickly as they can. This week it was autobiographical again. It was about jobs. And I told the story of when I was 16, my first job was at Long John Silver's as a cook. And on Friday of my first week, we got robbed. And a guy in a ski mask put a gun to the back of my head when I was leaning over to clean something by the vats. And the story went from there. Pretty intense story, but actually some funny stuff in it. And could be turned into stand-up. I've never turned it into stand-up, but I know it could be. So everybody was trying to do that, go back through the jobs, like from the very beginning. It's autobiographical, from here's the first way I made money to here's how I'm making money now. And that's often makes for interesting stand-up. A lot of stand-up's about jobs, if you actually start to look at it. Then we turned into the Insta-Fix Hour, where we run as many comics as we can through the on stage, microphone, lights, everything. They get up and they could run the 1 minute or the story that they just created, or they can bring in something. And we had a range of people who chose to do either of those. Again, I like this exercise. I worry sometimes about whether we can get enough depth into that quickly, but it seems to work pretty well. And again, people are learning about script, performance, character, and communication, which are the 4 most dynamic engines of stand-up comedy. And again, everybody's got assets and weaknesses in all of those. So we're trying to point those out and see what we can fix and what we can amplify that's good. So next week, we're going to do something a little different. We're going to do a performance week, performance enhancement week. One of the things about stand-up is you don't get a lot of training specifically in the actual performance of stand-up. If you take acting, they train all the time in what, the instrument, your face, your body, your emotionality, all the things that you bring to the moment physically as a performer. Stand-ups don't really think of it that way. They just kind of assume the performance. And I think it's one of those areas that you can really gain advantage if you can really perform as a stand-up comic. And some people do it naturally. They're born performers, or they've worked on as kids from the time they were kids until now, and they've got some repertoire. But I'd say, 90% of comics, 80% of comics just kind of stand there. They don't do a lot with performance. And as you move up in a pro ranks, you start to intuitively understand you've got to bring more speed vocally. You got to bring more variety. You got to play up the things about you that are interesting or different or quirky or magnetic. But you can also speed that up by looking at it specifically as something to amplify and increase the quality on. So next week, I'm going to post 3 fully cooked stand-up scripts of bits that I've written, and I'll post those into the Facebook group. And what I want people to do is read those, see if one of them looks interesting enough to you to perform, and go through the acting process. Read it, kind of get a feel for it, and then commit it to memory. Get off page, like you're supposed to be able to, very quickly as an actor, is learn this to the point where it's in your brain. Like you don't have to think about it, it's just there. And these are short bits, so it shouldn't be that hard. But they're gonna be very performance-centric. It's gonna have characters in it, voices, things to act out. And I wanna see where our acting comics are, like in the workshop. Not the writers this week so much as the actors. What can you bring to it just as a sheer performer? So there you go, we'll do that next week. And finally, the Saloon Show, I think it was episode or number 6 that we did. A bit of a, cluster this time because we had 11 non-workshoppers mixed into the batch. And I separated them. I had the workshoppers go up first and then the locals who had signed up go up second. But it just had a weird vibe. It didn't really work the same way because a lot of the people there didn't know about the workshop. They didn't know each other. So it ended up being separated, which is what all these communities do. All the local comics sat in the back and hung out with each other. And the workshoppers were up front and kind of interacting and taking part of the show. So it had a weird vibe, and some of the people were really good. There were some really good local pros in there. And then there were some that I was like, I wouldn't have put that person on stage. And if I had been hosting, I would have pulled them off stage about a minute in because they were setting a vibe that did not fit the Comedy Accelerator vibe. It fit the Mothership vibe. It fit maybe the Austin, edgelord vibe, but that's not the vibe I like to play in the Comedy Accelerator. And there's lots of reasons for that, but for me personally, it's because listening to weak or underdeveloped or early comedy from people who don't have a lot of skills yet, a lot of foundational skills, is one thing. Listen to offensive material by people trying to do that stuff who are basically defaulting to, I can't get laughs, but I know I can get stimulated and stimulate an audience by hitting certain topics. Pedophilia, trans, any kind of rape joke, all these different things that have infected and corrupted the Austin scene is kind of what Austin has become known for through the Kill Tony stuff. I don't like it. If you're great at it, Patrice O'Neal is one of my favorite comedians ever, probably my top favorite comedian, and he was an edgelord. He loved to push buttons, and he would work on any topic, and he was incredibly graphic, bodily and sexual, but he was an artist about it. He had so much going on as a stand-up that you could watch that stuff, and even stuff that might make you squeamish, it was still funny. Squeamish and profane and disgusting and, bodily without any humor, very hard to take. So I heckled a little bit. I was like, I couldn't stop myself. I wanted to pull somebody off stage, but I wasn't the host and I didn't want to get too involved in the show, but I would have shut him down. And again, it's not exactly his fault. Like we should set up, like, here's what the workshop is. If you want to perform here, don't bring your offensive material. Work on that somewhere else. It's just because I'm setting up a certain vibe. I don't restrict stand-up, talk about anything you want. I'm as irreverent as you could possibly be. But when it's in a live setting, in a sort of bare room anyway, because there's no audience, it's not reading the room well when you're just sort of going into the offensive stuff. And if you know me, which you would if you come to the workshop, you would know that that's probably not a good idea if you want to, sort of become a part of the Comedy Accelerator. If you don't, that's fine too. So anyway, we'll go through that. Next week is Easter, and the club asked me if I wanted to, go on through the Heathen Sunday, and I said yes, because I'm sure there are plenty of heathens who will show up. So we'll do that next Sunday. Keep coming back, and like I said, we're growing. It'll evolve, and I'm going to be doing my writing boot camp in about a month. We'll start that, and I'll start promoting that pretty soon. But other than that, yeah, the stand-up show is fine. We're going to make some changes to it. I also want to do some stuff about breaking the format, getting the audience more involved, maybe get more microphones in the room, because just the bareness of a stand-up trying to perform for other stand-ups who have already seen this material doesn't really work very well. It's not very much fun. So we need to keep it fun. So we're going to work on that. And that's it for the for week 32. We will see you again next time.